You know, it's been my privilege for the last 6 years, 5.5 years, to be sheriff here in Hamilton County. And one of the questions I pose to myself as it's time for re-election is, why would I want to seek re-election? I can tell you it's been one of the most rewarding times in my life professionally to serve as the sheriff of Hamilton County. It's a large department. We're the 4th largest department in the state of Tennessee. We've got a little over 400 personnel. The men and women of the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department are extremely professional. It's been my privilege over the last few years to be able to work putting together a team that I think is not only highly professional, but is committed to the mission statement that we've set for ourselves on excellence in law enforcement. So I feel like now that I have the team in place, it's time for me to look towards putting together some programs that I would like to see carry us forward as a county, things that would help keep this county safe. There are 3 principal things that all government has to do, and that is look to economic development, education for our young people, and safety and security. I want to have the opportunity as sheriff during the next 4 years to work on those programs to keep Hamilton County safe and secure for the citizens. What do I consider my greatest accomplishments during the last few years as sheriff? Well, certainly high among that list would be the accreditation process. The highest award any law enforcement agency can receive in the United States is the CALEA certification. This is a program that was put together by the National Sheriff's Association, the National Chiefs Association. There are 400 and some standards that must be met. We were successful during the last 3 years in putting together a program where we had CALEA come in and take a look at our office, work with us on those standards, and in just this past November, we were able to achieve that goal. That means that as a law enforcement agency, we are listed in the top agencies in this country for law enforcement standards. That'll help us in defending lawsuits that come about. It'll certainly help us in being able to receive grants that are important to law enforcement development. And it gives us a basis from which all of our policy and procedure is standardized. Probably the second thing that means a lot to me is our crisis intervention program. In the last few years, we've seen a large increase in the number of mental health consumers. Jails have become somewhat of a mental health facility once again. We've got to do a better job of how we react to these calls involving folks that are experiencing mental health issues. Psychotropic drugs are more in demand. The money that counties are spending to deal with the law enforcement aspect of mental health issues, these things are becoming much more difficult to deal with. In order to help that, we were fortunate in getting a grant my first year as sheriff that deals with crisis intervention training. This is where we take the officers, teach them how to approach a mental health consumer, de-escalate whatever violence might be there, and safely take them into custody, get them back on their medicine, or take them to a facility that can handle their mental health needs. As I look back on the last 4 years and I think about the goals that I set for myself to accomplish, I feel like not only did we accomplish those goals, but probably a few extra. I think the other day I was counting about 18 different programs that I was interested in seeing put in place, all the way from seeking accreditation from CALEA to seeking accreditation from the ACA and the jail, the crisis intervention program, the law enforcement foundation, the SRO program being advanced, including applying for more SROs and a number of things like that. So sometimes my staff, I think, felt like I was dumping more on them than they could handle, but all in all, they rose to the occasion. They were very professional in the way they addressed what the programs were. What I would do is if a concept or an idea came to my attention, either because of something I read or attending a meeting, I would run it by the command staff and say, let's assign this to one division and see where we go with it. So I'm very pleased with what we were able to accomplish over the last 4 years. You know, I have a long history with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. I really spent nearly 17 years as chief deputy. Then I was gone for a number of years. And when I returned as sheriff back in 2008, the first thing I noticed is there were major changes that happened. It wasn't the department that it was back when I was chief deputy. We had accomplished many things, including civil service when I was here. But over the years, it had grown in manpower, programs, the budget had increased. The professional level of the officers had changed. So my challenge was to look at where we were and then look at programs we could use to progress even further. This is not our grandfather's sheriff's office. We've come a long way. Technology, training, innovative programs All those kind of things have added to where we are today, so that, first of all, the degree of education, the level of education, the staff has increased. An example would be the size of our IT. When I left, we had one person who was involved in even beginning to look at computers. When I returned, we had a whole staff of IT workers whose responsibility is to keep the laptops running, the in-car computers running, all the technical equipment repaired. So being the fourth largest sheriff's office in the state requires that we are constantly looking at new technology. We're now looking at video visitation in this next year, as we just got approval for it, and we'll be moving forward in that area. The Law Enforcement Foundation, which is very important to me, is all about seeking the business community's assistance in new technology, command level training for our staff of officers, and innovative programs between law enforcement and the community that would do more to protect and serve this community with law enforcement. Being sheriff requires that one learn how to balance the responsibilities that he has. You're weighing the manpower needs with the budgetary needs, with your ability to be a politician, to speak to local groups almost on a daily basis. Not necessarily in this order, but the greatest challenge that any sheriff faces is budgetary, manpower needs, training, legislative issues, safety for your community. There's no way we can hire enough people to be everywhere at once, but the challenge for me as sheriff is to be able to take the resources I have and apply them to those areas. One of the greatest challenges any sheriff faces is budgetary. We have a large budget. Tax dollars are limited. Folks are on fixed incomes. Nobody wants to see property taxes go up. So we have to be very innovative in the way we approach how we do law enforcement. I'm somewhat of a businessman. I'm also a law enforcement officer. I'm an administrator. I've got a $30 million budget that I'm responsible for. Not only just for training officers, but it's also for buying automobiles, buying the weapons you needed, paying for the food in the jail, the gasoline to run the cars, the training, the psychotropic drugs, mental health issues. And yet we need manpower to cover the growing population, especially as it spreads into the unincorporated areas. We need resources, whether it's a federal grant, state grant, even private grants. As I said, probably better than 50% of the time is occupied being a business leader, to looking at this $30 million budget, allocating it for the resources we need, approaching the county commission for the funding we need for certain programs, looking at the training aspects of how we train the men and women in their profession. So it is a balancing act. You have to surround yourself with men and women who have the expertise to be able to assist you in this. Thank you everyone for being here. We've got a full slate here today. I think we've got a presentation. My command staff is second to none. They're all chosen for their individual abilities. And as sheriff, my job is to chair that committee and see that we get the best for this county. So there are many, many facets to running the business of being a sheriff. They're all very challenging. Who is Jim Hammond, other than sheriff? Well, I'm a husband. My wife and I have been married for 44 years. I'm a father. I have 3 children. I have 8 grandchildren. I've had a great career, 40-some years in law enforcement. My whole professional life has been involved in the criminal justice system. I serve on several boards, including Board of Trustees for one of the local Christian universities. I serve with the Fellowship of Christian Peace Officers, which is an agency that seeks to work with men and women across this country who have conservative Christian values. I enjoy working with foreign police. I've been very fortunate to travel and work in a number of countries, training police officers, and also assisting third world countries with democratic policing. I spent 3 years in the Middle East, helping train the Iraqi police. It's been my privilege to train in Russia, in Germany, and Jamaica, and Haiti, and a number of countries, just recently in Albania. I'm a guy who loves to have a lot of private time, as most people do when they're in the public eye. I enjoy reading. I enjoy great music. I enjoy just sometimes the quiet and solitude of knowing that you're out of the public eye. I'm very committed to my spiritual life, very active in my church. Politically, I'm extremely conservative. I want to see that we have the best men and women who will protect what our Constitution stands for. I'm very big in supporting the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Tennessee. I chose Hamilton County as my home a number of years ago. I came here from Florida as an 18-year-old to go to a Christian university. I graduated and then attended UTC, where I sought a degree in criminal justice. I've taught on the adjunct faculty at Chattanooga State and at UTC. I've traveled to a number of countries, over 20 different countries, where I was working with law enforcement around the world. And I gathered a lot of knowledge on how law enforcement is done in other communities and other countries. And very frankly, some of the best law enforcement we have is right here in the state of Tennessee. Living and working here in Hamilton County, I'm extremely pleased. I love the distinct seasons. I love where we're going, progressing in terms of economic development that's going on here. I like working as a police officer, and I love being sheriff. My goal is to continue to protect and serve this community that I consider home.